In the third year of her marriage to Shin Yu-hung, their marriage certificate was accidentally soaked in coffee. Nanu took the documents to the Civil Affairs Bureau for a replacement. The staff typed a few keys on the computer, then suddenly looked up at her. "Madam, your marital status shows as single." She was stunned for a moment, thinking she had misheard. "Impossible, my husband and I got our certificate here 3 years ago." The staff checked again, their expression becoming a little strange. "The system shows that you are indeed single, but Mr. Shin Yu-hung is married." She paused. "His spouse column is registered to another woman named Chao Chingi. Do you know her?" Nanu's mind exploded with a buzz, leaving only a sharp ringing in her ears. Everyone knew that Nanu and Shin Yu-hung were childhood sweethearts. She was the white moonlight in his heart, the person he had carefully protected in his youth. As for Chao Chingi, she was the substitute Shin Yu-hung found because he missed her too much during the 2 years she was abroad. Nanu clutched the fake marriage certificate, soaked in coffee, and got into the car in a daze. The phone suddenly vibrated twice and Shin Yu-hung's message popped up. "Baby, I ditched $100 billion deal to buy your favorite roses and strawberry cupcakes, just wanting to come back and be with you sooner. I miss you so much, do you miss me?" She stared at the message and suddenly laughed. As she laughed, tears streamed down her cheeks. For 3 years he had asked her this question every day, expressing his love for her. But it turned out he had secretly become legally married to someone else long ago. She remembered when she was little, Shin Yu-hung fell from a 3-meter-high tree to get her a kite, fracturing his right arm, but still smiled and handed her the kite, saying, "Ew, don't cry, it doesn't hurt." She remembered on her 15th birthday he stood in the rain all night downstairs at her house, just to be the first to say, "Happy birthday," to her when she woke up. She remembered her 18th birthday coming-of-age ceremony. He booked the entire amusement park and knelt on one knee under the fireworks, saying, "Ayu, when I'm 22 will you marry me?" She remembered when she went abroad to study, he pinned her against the wall at the airport with red eyes, his voice trembling. "2 years, I'll only give you 2 years, and when the time is up I'll tie you back." During those 2 years abroad he video called her almost every day. Once she was busy rushing her thesis and didn't answer the phone for 3 days. When she contacted him again, she found out that he had been hospitalized for alcohol abuse. In the video, his eyes were bloodshot. "Baby, I can't live without you." She always coaxed him. "He'll be back soon, just wait a little longer." The day she returned to China, she didn't tell Shin Yu-hung, wanting to give him a surprise. But when she pushed open the door to the club's private room, she saw him passionately kissing a girl. The girl's profile looked 7 parts like her. Her bag fell to the ground with a thud, and she turned to leave. Shin Yu-hung chased after her like a madman. When she didn't answer the phone, he kept sending messages. When she wouldn't see him, he stood in the rain downstairs, explaining over and over. "It's not what you think. You wouldn't let me see you all these years, I missed you so much, so I found a substitute. I swear we only hugged and kissed, nothing else happened. Ayu, I was wrong, but I really love you to the point of madness." In the end, he stood in the rain for 3 days and 3 nights, developed a high fever that turned into pneumonia and fainted. Even after being sent to the hospital, he refused to leave, and only then did she soften her heart and forgive him. Afterward, he treated her as well as he always had. It wasn't until after they were married that she discovered his assistant had been replaced by Chao Chingi. He explained again, "Her parents are in poor health and they couldn't adjust to the environment outside, so she begged me to let her return to Jingbei. She applied for the assistant position, I had no idea. She's quite capable at her job and was selected through a rigorous process. I can't just fire her." So she tolerated it once again. Unexpectedly, as she endured, she turned herself into a complete laughingstock. By the time the car drove into the villa district, Nanu's tears had already dried. She took a deep breath, just about to push the door open, when she heard Shin Yu-hung and his brother talking in the living room. "I just went to the hospital. Chao Chingi is fine, just a few scratches. You can stay home and take care of Nanu." Shin Yu-hung leaned back on the sofa, the top 2 buttons of his black shirt undone, his long legs crossed. He frowned and put out the cigarette in his brother's hand, his voice low and cold. "How many times have I told you no smoking in my house? Ayu doesn't like the smell of smoke." All right, you're whipped." The brother teased with a smile. "But I really don't get it. You clearly love Nanu so much. Why did you have to get a marriage certificate with Chao Chingi back then?" To be honest, do you see her as more than just a substitute? The air was silent for a few seconds. Then Shin Yuheng's deep voice came, "What if I do? I used to think she was just a substitute and I wouldn't need her once you came back. But after she was sent away, I dreamed about her almost every night. Later, I couldn't stand her not being by my side, so I brought her back and kept her as my assistant. I can't live without a you but Qingyi. I can't live without her either. Yao Yu can openly enjoy my favor while Qingyi can only remain in the shadows. What's wrong with compensating her with a title?" His brother sighed. "Aren't you afraid Nanu will find out? With her personality, even if you died in front of her, she wouldn't turn back." Shin Yuheng was silent for a moment, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Then she must never know." Nanu stood outside the door, feeling as if all the blood in her body had frozen. She thought she would break down and cry, but found that she couldn't even shed a tear. So this is what ultimate pain feels like. It's like a piece of her heart has been carved out, yet it still has to keep beating. She remembered that Shin Yuheng had kissed her forehead tenderly before leaving this morning. Remembered that every time he got drunk at social events, he would hold her and murmur, "Baby, I can't live without you." Remembered him warming her cold hands against his chest, saying that it only beats for her. It was all a lie. On her way back, she was still wondering if he had some unspeakable reason. Now she realizes that he simply fell in love with two people at the same time. What he wanted was never an either-or choice, but to have one as his white moonlight and the other as his cinnabar mole. Wasn't Shin Yujing afraid of her finding out? Then she'll let him know what it truly means to never look back. She turned and left, immediately doing two things. The first thing she did was apply to cancel all her identity information in China. The second thing was that she changed her name. The staff told her that all the procedures would be completed within 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, even if Shin Yuheng searched heaven and earth, he would never find her again. Nanu turned and left, her phone vibrating wildly in her bag, filled with missed calls and messages from Shin Yuheng. She didn't look or reply. It was already dark when she got home. Shin Yuheng was standing in the living room. As soon as he saw her, he strode over, the anxiety in his eyes clear. "Baby, where did you go? I came back and found you weren't home. I've been waiting for hours and almost turned the whole city upside down looking for you." His worry didn't seem fake. Nanu stared blankly at him, her heart feeling as if it had been clenched tightly by an invisible hand. She suddenly remembered back in high school when he went to participate in a math competition, and she was only an hour late in replying to his message. He abandoned the competition and ran back to find her, afraid that something had happened to her. A person who clearly loved her so much. So the love he gave wasn't unique after all. Her throat felt blocked, even her breathing was accompanied by a subtle pain, but in the end she just calmly said, "Went shopping, forgot to tell you, sorry." Only then did Shin Yuheng breathe a sigh of relief, pulling her into his arms. "Why are you apologizing to me? I'm not blaming you, just worried." He lowered his head and kissed the top of her head, his tone gentle. "Okay baby, you said the day before yesterday that you wanted to eat sweet and sour pork ribs and steamed sea bass. I'll go make them for you, okay?" With that, he let go of her and turned to go into the kitchen. Nanu stood at the door, quietly watching Shin Yujing. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his slender fingers skillfully chopping vegetables, his profile appearing particularly gentle in the warm yellow light. She suddenly remembered that 3 years ago, when she had just returned to China, her stomach problems were so severe that she was hospitalized due to long-term irregular eating habits. At that time, Shin Yujing, a multi-billion-dollar CEO who had never cooked before, spent a whole month learning a good repertoire of dishes from top chefs. Once, an international video conference clashed with the time he had to cook for her, so he set up the tablet in the kitchen and listened to the report while stir-frying, which stunned a group of senior executives. He used to love her so much. But at this moment his phone rang. Nanu saw him glance at the screen, his expression changed slightly, then he put down the knife and hurriedly wiped his hands. "Baby, something urgent came up at the company, I need to head over there." He untied his apron, his tone as normal as ever, even remembering to lean down and kiss her forehead. "I've already made 3 dishes, you eat first, don't wait for me." Nanu didn't say anything, just nodded. After he left, she walked to the dining table, looking at the dishes that were still steaming, and suddenly her heart ached so much that she could hardly breathe. She had just seen clearly that the phone call was from Chao Chingi. Instead of sitting down to eat as he had hoped, she went outside, hailed a cab and followed him. Sure enough, Shin Yuding wasn't going to the company but to the hospital. In the hallway of the hospital's VIP ward, the entire floor had been cleared, with only a few doctors and nurses in white coats standing nervously in front of the ward door. The dean was bending over, humbly apologizing to Shin Yujing in a low voice. "Mr. Shin, I'm really sorry, it was our lack of care that caused Miss Chao to fall in the bathroom. We will definitely increase the number of caregivers and will never make such a mistake again." Shin Yujing's face was gloomy, and his voice was as cold as ice. "If there is a next time, this hospital doesn't need to be open." The dean nodded repeatedly. Yes, we will definitely pay attention." Nanu stood at the corner, her fingertips digging into her palm. Clearly, his brother had said that Chao Chingi only had a slight scratch. But looking at it now, for a slight scratch, he had booked the entire building, and now that something had happened, he was so nervous that he wanted to turn the whole hospital upside down. The door to the ward was pushed open, and Chao Chingi leaned weakly against the headboard, her face pale and her eyes red. Shin Yuheng walked over quickly and took her hand. "How are you? Does anything else hurt?" Chao Chingi's eyes were red and her voice choked with sobs. "It's all my fault, it's fine if I got hit by a car, but I even fell in the shower, making you unable to spend time with Miss Nan. What if she overthinks it? I'm such a jinx." "What nonsense are you talking about?" He scolded in a low voice, but his tone was gentle. "Just focus on recovering, I'll be here with you for the next few days." Chao Chingi raised her wet eyes. "What about Miss Nan?" Shin Yuheng said lightly. "I'll make arrangements, you don't need to worry about it." He paused, then added, "We're husband and wife, isn't it only right that I'm here with you?" Nanu felt her blood run cold. Husband and wife, what a husband and wife. But before she could recover, the next second she saw Shin Yuheng take off the Buddhist beads from his wrist and gently put them on Chao Chingi's hand. "Also, you're not allowed to call yourself a jinx anymore. This string of Buddhist beads has been blessed. I've worn it for 7 years. I'll let you wear it from now on to keep you safe and well." Chao Chingi was so moved that she burst into tears and reached out to hug him. Standing outside the door, Nanu felt a blur before her eyes, as if she was being drowned in the deep sea. That string of Buddhist beads. She obtained it when she was 18, kneeling every 3 steps and kowtowing every 9 steps, all the way from the foot of the mountain to the temple on the summit. It rained heavily that day, and she knelt until her knees were bleeding and her palms were worn through before finally getting the abbot to consecrate them. When she returned, Shin Yuheng saw her disheveled appearance, his eyes instantly reddened, and he hugged her tightly, his voice trembling. "Ayu, are you crazy? Who told you to suffer like this?" Smiling, she placed the Buddhist prayer beads on his wrist. "The abbot said these beads will keep you safe and sound and grant you a long life." He lowered his head to kiss her and said, "I will wear them for a lifetime." For the next 7 years he truly never took them off. Even in the most formal business settings, even in the most intimate moments, these Buddhist prayer beads were always on his wrist. But now he personally placed it on another woman's hand. Her heart felt like it was being slowly sliced open by a dull knife, the pain making it difficult to even breathe. So his entire life was just 7 years. She turned and left, her steps unsteady as if walking on cotton. "It was late when I got home." She had just stepped inside when her phone vibrated. It was a message from Shin Yuheng. "Baby, something came up at the company, I have to go on a business trip abroad for a few days. Don't be angry, I'll make it up to you when I get back." Nanu stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, trembling slightly. She typed a line. "Is it a business trip for a few days or spending a few days with your wife?" But in the end she deleted it word by word, tears falling on the screen, blurring her vision. After that she kept packing her luggage. ID, passport, bank cards. She packed everything that could prove her identity into the suitcase. 3 days later Shin Yuheng returned. When he pushed open the door he held a large bouquet of roses in one hand and a strawberry cake in the other, his smile gentle. "Baby, I'm back." Nanu stood in the center of the living room quietly watching him. He walked over, placed the flowers and cake on the table and reached out to hug her. "The company's affairs have been too busy these past few days and I had to go abroad, otherwise I wouldn't have left you for so long. Don't be angry, okay?" She turned slightly, avoiding his embrace, and said in a calm tone, "I'm not angry, go ahead and do your thing." He was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and said, I'm not busy anymore. I've finished everything I needed to do, now it's time to coax you. He took her hand, his eyes filled with anticipation. I have a surprise for you. Without waiting for her response, he pulled her into the car. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of a concert hall. Nanu walked in and found that the entire hall had been reserved. It was filled with people who, upon seeing them enter, began to whisper amongst themselves. President Shin is really going all out, reserving the entire concert hall for Miss Nan. I heard he specially invited her favorite orchestra from abroad to play her exclusive repertoire all day today. That band's value has skyrocketed now. Conservatively speaking, this trip cost more than $1 billion. This is nothing. Mr. Shin is famous for spoiling his wife. Nanu stood under the dazzling lights, surrounded by everyone's envy, and in front of her was Shin Yu-hung's gentle smile. But her heart felt like it was soaked in ice water, painfully cold. He gave her grand romance but gave someone else the status of marriage. He let her live in the envious gazes of others, but let another woman live on his marriage certificate. Nanu sat in the VIP seat of the concert hall, with melodious piano music in her ears and Shin Yu-hung's gentle smile in front of her. He leaned over to gather her shawl and asked softly, "Are you cold?" She shook her head but subconsciously frowned, a twinge of pain coming from her lower abdomen. Shin Yu-hung immediately noticed, "Is it your period?" She felt the warm flow beneath her and nodded. His warm palm pressed against her lower abdomen, gently massaging it, his tone apologetic. "Is it very painful? Should we go back?" Nanu shook her head. Shin Yu-hung couldn't resist her, so he had to call his assistant to bring feminine hygiene products and heating pads. During this time, his attention was entirely on her, occasionally rubbing her stomach, asking her in a low voice if she wanted hot water or a blanket, as meticulous as if she were still the treasure he held in his palm. Half an hour later, someone hurried over and whispered, "Mr. Shin, the things have arrived." Nanu and Shin Yu-hung turned back at the same time. It was Chao Chingi. She was holding a paper bag in her hand, her hair was slightly damp and her face was a little pale. Shin Yu-hung's face changed instantly. "You just recovered from your injury. Who told you to come?" "Didn't I ask for Lin Fan?" Chao Chingi bit her lip, her voice soft. "Assistant Lin is in negotiations for a project. I was afraid Miss Nan would be in too much pain and also that you would be waiting anxiously, so I came myself." As she spoke, she carefully handed over the paper bag, adding, "It's raining heavily outside and I forgot to bring an umbrella. But don't worry, I protected the heating pad and sanitary products very well, and they didn't get wet at all." Shin Yu-hung's expression changed several times, but in the end he took the paper bag first and handed it to Nanu. "Baby, I'll go with you to change." Nanu didn't say anything, took the things and went to the restroom. When she came out, Shin Yu-hung, who said he would be waiting outside, was gone. She was about to leave when she heard a faint noise from the restroom next door. She walked over to take a look. Shin Yu-hung had Chao Chingi pinned against the sink, kissing her deeply. Chao Chingi yielded reluctantly. "Don't. Miss Nan is still waiting for you. Never mind her for now." Shin Yu-hung's voice was low and husky. "You ran over in such heavy rain trying to make me feel sorry for you? I'm just afraid Miss Nan will be upset if she waits too long. And you'll be upset seeing her upset." Chao Chingi's voice was tearful. "I just want you to be happy." Shin Yu-hung seemed even more distressed, kissing her even deeper, and Chao Chingi couldn't help but moan. He chuckled softly, his voice gentle. "Feeling something?" Chao Chingi blushed and pushed him away. "Go keep Miss Nan company. I can take care of myself." "How will you take care of it?" Shin Yu-hung's voice was teasingly doting. "This kind of thing is more comfortable with a man's help." His hand reached down. Then there was the rustling of fabric, Chao Chingi's suppressed breathing, and Shin Yu-hung's low, coaxing voice. "Be good, relax." Nanu stood outside the door, her heart tearing with pain. She remembered their first kiss. That year, when she was 18, he held her face under the fireworks and asked cautiously, "Ayu, may I kiss you?" She nodded, her face flushed, and he lowered his head to kiss her, as gentle as if he were holding a fragile treasure. She remembered their first night together. He was restrained and patient, asking her again and again if it hurt, and only when she shook her head did he dare to completely possess her. Afterwards, he held her and coaxed her for a long time, saying that he would be good to her for the rest of his life. But now he was in the bathroom pleasuring another woman with his fingers. "Shin Yu-hung, oh Shin Yu-hung, You have betrayed me so completely. Her heart felt like it was being torn in two, the pain almost making her unable to stand. She staggered backward, accidentally bumping into a decorative vase by the wall. Who's outside? Shin Yuheng's cold voice came. When Shin Yuheng chased after her, the corridor was empty, with only an orange cat squatting in the corner, watching him warily. Looks like it was a cat. Chao Chingi followed and said softly, "You should go keep Miss Nan company, I'll just take a taxi back later." Shin Yuheng frowned. "It's raining so hard, what taxi are you taking? Just stay by my side." Chao Chingi bit her lip and whispered, "But Miss Nan. Who is your man?" Shin Yujing suddenly pinched her chin, his voice low. Chao Chingi's cheeks flushed instantly and she whispered, "You. Then listen to me." He took her hand and led her directly back to the concert hall. When they pushed the door open, Nanu was still sitting in the same spot, quietly listening to the performance. Shin Yujing breathed a sigh of relief, pulled Chao Chingi to sit next to her and casually explained, "Baby, it's raining too hard outside and she happens to enjoy listening to the performance, so I let her stay." Nanu hummed in acknowledgement, not calling him out. Throughout the entire concert, Shin Yujing remained attentive to Nanu, asking her if she was cold, rubbing her stomach for her, and even whispering to ask if she wanted to leave early to rest. Nanu knew that his left hand was always interlocked with Chao Chingi's. She suddenly remembered the first time they held hands. That year she was 16, it was a snowy winter night, and he secretly climbed over the wall to the bottom of her building, held out his frozen red hand to her and said with a smile, "Ew, my hand is so cold, can you warm it up for me?" Her face flushed as she took his hand, and he immediately tightened his fingers, never letting go again. Back then she was all he could see. But now he holds her hand while holding someone else's. A tear slid down uncontrollably. Shin Yuheng noticed it immediately, his fingertip gently brushing across her cheek. "What's wrong?" Nanu smiled and said softly, "The music is too touching." Shin Yuheng chuckled, his voice indulgent. "Such a baby, so easily sentimental, huh?" She didn't speak, letting him wipe away her tears. After the concert ended, the crowd gradually dispersed, but Shin Yuheng didn't let Nanu leave. He had a pile of musical instruments pushed in, pianos, cellos, violins. Each one priceless. "You said before that these instruments were good, so I bought them all at a high price." He asked her with a smile, "Do you like them?" The staff next to him immediately added, "Miss Nan, President Shin put a lot of effort into this batch of instruments. Some were auctioned off at high prices from private collectors, and some were borrowed from museums." Chao Chingi stood aside, a dark look flashing in her eyes. Nanu tugged at her lips, just about to speak. "What's this?" Chao Chingi suddenly reached out, curiously pulling on a decorative rope nearby. "Don't pull." The staff member's face changed drastically, but it was too late. A rumbling sound of mechanical operation came from overhead, and the next second, the heavy lighting rig and sound equipment slammed down. In a flash, Shin Yuheng grabbed Chao Chingi and rolled to the side with her in his arms. Nanu stood there, watching the dark figure press down on her. Bang! A sharp pain struck and she fell into a pool of blood. In her last moments of consciousness, she heard Shin Yuheng's panicked cry, "You!" But she knew that the person in his arms was someone else. Nanu had a very long dream. In the dream, 14-year-old Shin Yuheng was still wearing his school uniform, with bruises on the corner of his mouth, but he was smiling freely and flamboyantly. While applying medicine to his wounds, she scolded him with red eyes. "Are you crazy? Fighting 30 people by yourself, even if you were Ultraman, you can't fight like that." He raised his eyebrows, not caring at all. "Who told those hoodlums to rob you? Bullying you is just not allowed." The boy raised his face, his eyes burning with fervor and determination. "As long as I'm here, you're not allowed to get hurt at all." Nanu in the dream was in tears, unable to stop herself from calling his name, Shin Yuheng. But he seemed not to hear, holding the hand of the girl who was also 14, turning and walking away. The scene suddenly flipped. In reality, Shin Yuheng protected Chao Chingi, allowing her to be injured, blood staining his vision red. She suddenly opened her eyes, tears soaking the pillowcase. Before she could recover, the next second she saw Chao Chingi in the hospital room, crying as she threw herself into Shin Yuheng's arms. "What should I do? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have pulled that rope. If I hadn't pulled it, Miss Nan wouldn't have been in trouble. Punish me." Shin Yujing helplessly wiped away her tears. Really want a punishment? Chao Chingi nodded, sobbing. Yes, if you do something wrong, you have to be punished, otherwise I won't be able to sleep. Shin Yujing chuckled and pinched her face. Then call me husband. Chao Chingi was stunned. What? Call. Her face flushed, she whispered. Husband. Shin Yuheng ruffled her hair, his voice gentle. Since you call me husband, you have to listen to me. I have my own way of handling this matter. You don't need to worry about it. Chao Chingi could only obediently leave. Nanu quietly watched this scene, her fingers unconsciously knocking over the water glass on the bedside table. Clatter! Shin Yuheng suddenly turned his head and realized she was awake. He strode over, his eyes full of concern. How are you? Does anything hurt? He held her hand, his tone filled with regret. I'm sorry, it was too chaotic at the time, I mistook you for someone else. Nanu closed her eyes, not exposing his lie. She only asked softly, where is Chao Chingi? Shin Yuheng's expression changed slightly, thinking she was going to make trouble for Chao Chingi. He immediately explained, she didn't do it on purpose either. But it was indeed her fault, and I have already severely punished her. Nanu recalled the scene just now where he had Chao Chingi call him husband, and thought, is this a form of punishment? That is indeed quite severe. She said nothing. She didn't angrily question him about why he mistook her for someone else, nor did she hysterically accuse him of favoritism. She simply said calmly, I'm hungry. Shin Yuheng was stunned. He stared into her eyes, finally noticing something was off. He was too calm. Calm. Like a stagnant pool of water. He opened his mouth wanting to say something, but Nanu repeated, I'm hungry, completely disrupting his thoughts. He could only suppress his unease and nod gently. Okay baby, I'll go buy you something to eat right away, you wait for me. He picked up the car keys and left in a hurry. The moment the door closed, Nanu's tears could no longer be held back and they poured down. But she immediately raised her hand to wipe them dry. She looked out the window, the sunlight glaring, yet unable to penetrate her heart. Only love can be hysterical, only hate can be restlessly noisy. But now towards Shin Yujing. There was neither love nor hate. Shin Yuheng turned down all work and stayed by Nanu's side in the hospital, taking care of her every step of the way. He personally fed her, applied her medicine, and even woke up in the middle of the night to make sure she hadn't kicked off the covers. But Nanu remained calm throughout. Until the day of her discharge, Shin Yuheng felt she was stifled, so he specially organized a grand banquet to celebrate her recovery. The banquet hall was resplendent with gold and jade, champagne towers were stacked high, guests were dressed in glamorous attire, and amidst the clinking of glasses, everyone was filled with envy. President Shin truly dotes on Miss Nan to the core. I heard all these gifts are limited editions, some even bought at sky-high prices at auctions. Miss Nan is truly blessed. Nanu stood in the center of the crowd without a trace of a smile on her face. Shin Yuheng finally couldn't help but pull her into a corner and asked in a low voice, are you still angry? He rubbed the inside of her wrist with his thumb, his tone coaxing, I swear I really mistook you for someone else at the time. What do you want me to do to make you forgive me? Baby, tell me, I'll do anything, okay? Nanu looked at him and suddenly smiled. Okay, fire Chao Chingi. Shin Yuheng's expression changed slightly, his tone softening a little. Her family is poor and her parents are sick, why be so ruthless? Nanu looked at him quietly. He had just said he was willing to do anything, but as soon as Chao Chingi was involved, he immediately went back on his word. She was just about to speak when Shin Yuding's phone suddenly rang. It was Chao Chingi. On the other end of the phone, she was crying her heart out. President Shin. Save me. Someone has hired a group of thugs. They want to humiliate me. Shin Yuding's face changed drastically. What did you say? Where are you now? But the call had already ended. Shin Yuheng's expression changed and he immediately called back, but he couldn't get through again. He suddenly looked at Nanu, his eyes shifting from anxiety to suspicion, and then to suppressed anger. Where's Chao Chingi? His voice was tight but still restrained. Nanu's heart clenched painfully. He didn't trust her. He didn't even need to verify. He had already decided it was her doing. Her voice trembled as she said, you suspect me? It's not suspicion. He rubbed his temples. It's just that she said on the phone just now that someone was trying to bully her. So, Nanyu's voice trembled. You think I did it? Shin Yuheng was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, I didn't say that, it's just that the situation is urgent now. She makes one phone call and you get this nervous? Nanu suddenly laughed, but her eyes were icy cold. Shin Yuheng, what is your relationship with her? His brow furrowed even deeper. This is a matter of life and death. Do you have to be jealous at a time like this? Jealous. Nanyu's voice was as light as a feather falling to the ground. You think this is jealousy? Shin Yuheng took a deep breath, trying to soften his tone as much as possible. There really isn't anything between her and me, but now something might have happened to her. Tell me first, was it you? It wasn't me. Nanu interrupted him, each word like a knife cutting. I'll say it one last time, I don't know where she is and I didn't ask anyone to touch her. Shin Yuheng stared at her, the anxiety in his eyes growing more and more obvious. Time passed by minute, but Chao Chingi's phone remained unreachable. Finally, he completely lost his patience, grabbing Nanyu's wrist, his grip so tight it almost crushed her bones. I said I've already punished her. Why do you still have to do this? Destroying a girl's innocence is the most despicable method. I don't have time to mess around with you. Tell me, where exactly is Chao Chingi? Nanyu's face turned pale with pain, but she stubbornly repeated, I don't know. No matter how many times you ask, I don't know. Shin Yuheng was completely enraged. It's like I've never known you. He flung her away. Bang. Nanu staggered a few steps, her lower back slamming hard against the corner of the table, her forehead hitting the sharp decorative edge, and blood gushed out instantly. Screams erupted around her. President Shin, Miss Nan is injured. But Shin Yuheng ignored it. Without looking back, he walked out, sternly ordering over the phone, pull up the surveillance footage immediately. Find out the last location he appeared. Nanu leaned on the corner of the table, slowly standing up. Fresh blood trickled down her forehead, warm and sticky, but she felt no pain. Compared to the pain of her heart being torn apart, what was this little injury? She stared blankly in the direction Shin Yuheng had left and suddenly laughed. Why would he care about her? His heart and eyes are now filled with Chao Chingi. Just like before when his heart and eyes were filled with her. Someone panicked and surrounded her, wanting to help her to the hospital, but she gently shook her head, pushed away all the helping hands and walked out of the banquet hall alone. Bang! Just as she walked out, a loud crash suddenly came from behind. Nanu turned back and saw the gilded plaque that read Shin Yuheng loves Nanu for life had fallen heavily to the ground, broken in two. She looked at the plaque and suddenly burst out laughing. Smiling, and then the tears fell. Shin Yuheng, your lifetime turns out it's so short. Nanu went home alone. She silently treated the wound on her forehead and then began to pack her things. The necklace, ring and watch that Shin Yuheng had given her, the cards he had personally written, the photo album they had taken together. Everything related to him was packed into cardboard boxes and thrown into the trash can downstairs, load after load. When the last box was thrown away, the night wind swept snowflakes across her cheeks. She stood under the street lamp and suddenly felt ridiculous. Memories once cherished are now nothing more than trash in a junkyard. In the instant she turned around, a sack suddenly covered her head. Before she could struggle, a sharp pain shot through the back of her neck, and darkness fell as she lost consciousness completely. When she woke up again, Nanu found herself still trapped in the sack, her hands tied behind her back, and her mouth gagged tightly with a strip of cloth. Through the gaps in the sack, she saw Shin Yuheng holding Chao Chingi on the high sofa, surrounded by bodyguards. The bodyguard respectfully reported, Mr. Shin, we've caught the person. This is the leader of the thugs Miss Nan sent to bully Miss Chao. Chao Chingi shrank in Shin Yuheng's arms, her voice timid. Yuheng, why don't we just let it go? You arrived in time and I wasn't really hurt. Shin Yuheng sneered. No. His slender fingers gently stroked Chao Chingi's face, his tone unbelievably gentle. I can't bear to touch Au, but since she dared to bully you, I have to give you an explanation. Since these are the people she found, then I will kill the chicken to warn the monkey, so she won't dare to do this kind of thing again in the future. Nanu felt cold all over. She finally understood all of this was orchestrated by Chao Chingi. After Chao Chingi pretended to be humiliated by thugs, She bribed someone to kidnap her and lied to Shin Yuheng that she was being bullied by the leader, all to make Shin Yuheng torture her unknowingly. She struggled desperately, wanting to call Shin Yuheng's name, but her mouth was stuffed, and she could only make weak whimpering sounds. Chao Chingi sighed soft-heartedly. Then, "Be gentle, after all, she is Miss Nan's person." Shin Yuheng's eyes turned cold. "Light? Impossible. Dare to bully you, I will let him know what it means to wish he were dead." The next second, Nanu was dragged onto the high platform. Below was a swimming pool more than 10 meters deep, the cold water reflecting the pale light. She was hooded in a burlap sack, bound with ropes, and violently pushed off the edge of the high platform. Bang! The icy water instantly flooded the burlap sack, the immense impact feeling like a sledgehammer blow to her internal organs. Water poured in through her nose and mouth, choking her until her vision went black. Her lungs felt like they were being pierced by countless needles, and the pain made her instinctively curl up. Help! Save! The faint cries for help were drowned out by the water. The burlap sack, saturated with water, grew heavier and heavier, dragging her down like a lead weight. She struggled desperately, but the ropes only tightened, choking her almost to the point of suffocation. Just as her consciousness was about to fade, the rope suddenly tightened and she was yanked out of the water. Cough, cough, cough. She coughed violently, the water in her lungs mixed with blood splattering out. Before she could catch her breath, her body was pushed down again. Once, twice, 3 times. Each descent felt like being thrown into an ice cave, each ascent like being flayed alive. Over and over, a living hell. Nanu's consciousness grew increasingly blurred, his ears filled with a buzzing roar, his lungs burning as if about to explode. After being pulled up for what felt like the 100th time, Chao Chingi finally couldn't bear it, and called a halt. Enough. Yuheng, stop torturing him. Shin Yuheng sneered, "It's not over yet." He took the iron bar from the bodyguard and walked up to Nanu. "If you dare to touch my people, you will pay the price." Bang! The first blow landed heavily on her back, and Nanu arched violently like an electric-shocked shrimp. Excruciating pain exploded from her spine, instantly spreading to every limb and bone. She bit down hard on the cloth strip in her mouth, but still let out a muffled groan. Bang! 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 Blow after blow without mercy. Each strike felt like it was going to shatter her bones and rupture her internal organs. Nanu could feel the warm liquid spilling from the corner of her mouth, dripping down her chin to the ground. 99 blows. He delivered them himself. By the end, Nanu couldn't feel any pain anymore. Her consciousness began to blur and her vision went black in waves. Her body felt like it had been torn into pieces or thrown into a meat grinder. When the last blow landed, she collapsed on the ground like a rag doll, the pool of blood beneath her growing, soaking her clothes and staining the ground red. Crack! He lifted his gleaming leather shoe and ruthlessly crushed her exposed fingers. The sound of breaking finger bones was clearly audible. Nanu convulsed in pain but couldn't even scream. Only then did Shin Yuheng retract his foot with satisfaction, turning to embrace Chao Chingi. His slender fingers gently stroked her long hair. "Did I scare you? Okay, it's over." He waved his hand at the bodyguard as if disposing of trash. "Throw this person back." After speaking, he picked up Chao Chingi and left without looking back, his leather shoes stepping in the pool of blood, making a sticky sound. The gag in Nanu's mouth finally loosened. She used her last strength to call out his name in a hoarse voice. "Shin. Yifeng." The voice was as weak as a dying candle in the wind, but it exhausted all her strength. His footsteps suddenly halted. But Chao Chingi fainted at just the right moment, leaning softly on his shoulder. "Yuheng. My head hurts so much." Shin Yuheng immediately retracted his gaze, no longer paying attention to the illusion from just now, and anxiously held her tighter. "I'll take you to the hospital right away." He strode away, never looking back. Nanu looked at his back and suddenly smiled. As she smiled, tears mixed with blood and rolled down. If only he would turn back and look once. Just one look, and he would know that the person he was torturing to the point of near death at this moment was the one he once held in the palm of his hand. But he didn't. His eyes were completely filled with Chao Chingi. When Nanu regained consciousness, she found herself thrown on the floor of the villa. Soaked to the bone, her bones ached as if they had been crushed. She struggled to get up, each movement causing a tearing pain in the wound on her back. Her fingers were swollen beyond recognition, the fractured bones showing a horrifying bluish purple. The phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, trembling, and saw 2 messages. The first message was from Shin Yu-hung. "Baby, I was wrong before. I shouldn't have lost my temper with you. I just didn't want you to do something wrong. I'm taking care of Chao Chingi in the hospital these days, so I won't be back. I'll come back to be with you when she gets better." Nanu stared at the screen and suddenly laughed through her tears. How ridiculous. He tormented her half to death, yet could still call her baby as if nothing had happened. He didn't even notice she was missing. The second was a notification that the identity cancellation was successful. "Ms. Nan, the identity information cancellation and name change application you submitted has been approved and will take effect immediately." Nanu gripped her phone tightly, her knuckles white. She could finally leave. She braced herself and stood up, changed into a clean set of clothes, and then picked up the suitcase she had packed long ago. Everything in this house that belonged to her she took with her. Except for 2 things. The first is the necklace Shin Yu-hung gave her when she was 18. A miniature monitor was hidden in the necklace pendant. When he gave it to her, he said, "Ayu, I want to know what you're doing every moment." At that time she felt sweet, but now she only feels irony. He probably hasn't seen it in a long time, right? But as long as he sees it, he will know that he personally pushed her off the high platform swimming pool time and time again. That he personally beat her 99 times. He personally crushed her finger bones. The second item is the love letters he wrote when he was pursuing her. A thick stack, the yellowed paper still bearing the handwriting of his youth. "Ayu, I saw you wearing a white dress today, and my heart was beating so fast I felt like I was going to die. Ayu, how about we get married after you graduate? I can't wait even a day. Ayu, I will love you for a lifetime and only you." Nanu gently stroked those words. Suddenly recalling that year when she was 18, he pinned her against the wall with red eyes and said, "Ayu, I can't live without you." Those vows that once moved her so much she couldn't sleep, now seem absurd word for word. Nanu placed the necklace and love letter on the coffee table, then turned and left without hesitation. Before leaving, she threw her phone into the trash can, burying it along with all the past. From now on, there would be no more Nanu in this world who would shed tears for Shin Yu-hung. As the plane took off, Nanu looked at the city lights outside the porthole that were gradually shrinking, and in a daze she saw 18-year-old Shin Yu-hung standing in the clouds, smiling at her. The next second, a sharp pain exploded from her ribs, the illusion vanished and she bit her lip hard, the taste of blood filling her mouth. "Madam, do you need any help?" The man in the next seat put down his magazine, having keenly noticed the cold sweat on her forehead. Nanu shook her head, burying her face deeper into her scarf. It still carried the musty smell of the basement, a cheap item she had casually bought in the airport restroom. "I'm fine." Her voice was light and airy. "Just a little airsick." Su Yen looked at the young woman who exuded a sense of incongruity. She was wearing an obviously oversized camel-colored trench coat, and there was a mark on the ring finger of her left hand from wearing a ring for a long time, but her right hand was strangely twisted. Most unsettlingly, even in the 26-degree cabin, she was still unconsciously shivering. "I'm a doctor." Su Yen handed over a tissue. "You look terrible." When Nanu took the tissue, he noticed the bruises on the inside of her wrist, the kind of marks left by professional bondage. Su Yen realized that this was no ordinary victim of domestic violence. "Thank you." Nanu clenched the tissue in her palm but didn't use it. She can't leave any traces, especially not now. But once the plane lands, Shin Yu-hung could turn the world upside down and still not find her. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot up from her abdomen. Nanu's vision went black and she felt a warm liquid gushing from her nostrils. She subconsciously reached out to touch it, her fingertips encountering a sticky crimson. Su Yen yanked open his seatbelt. "Flight attendant. We need emergency medical assistance here." In her blurred vision, Nanu saw the man's slender fingers quickly unbuttoning her collar. How strange, she actually thought of Shin Yu-hung's hands at this moment. Last night those hands had also unbuttoned Chao Chingi's clothes. Nanu felt as if she was being lifted up by countless hands, like a fallen leaf floating on the stormy sea. She remembered the feeling of being pushed into the pool, the stinging pain of ice water flooding her lungs, and the burning sensation of the burlap fibers rubbing against her cheeks. The most painful thing was Xin Yuzheng's words, "Dare to touch my people and you will pay the price," each word like a dull knife slowly cutting her heart. In the last moment before consciousness faded, Nanu heard her own hoarse laughter. How ironic, the ribs broken by Xin Yuheng himself were now piercing her lungs. He always said he would protect her from any harm, but in the end he became the one who hurt her the most. The cabin lights flickered overhead and Su Yan's shirt was soaked with sweat. This unfamiliar woman was losing her life bit by bit in his hands, and some inexplicable intuition prevented him from standing idly by. The flight attendant whispered, "Doctor, do we need to make an emergency landing?" Nanu, who was in a coma, suddenly convulsed violently. Su Yan held her down and turned to the flight attendant. "Contact the airport to prepare an ambulance. The patient has multiple fractures and internal bleeding and needs." Before he could finish speaking, his wrist was suddenly grabbed. Those Huan-san eyes miraculously focused for a moment, and Su Yan saw them filled with a startling determination. "The hospital." Blood foam overflowed from the corner of Nanu's mouth with every word she spoke. "Please." Su Yan was stunned and he nodded as if possessed. "I have a sanatorium in the suburbs." She woke up in the smell of disinfectant. Sunlight fell on the bedsheets through the yin. Nanu stared blankly at the ceiling, unable to tell whether it was reality or a dream for a moment. Until a deep male voice came from the side. "Awake?" She turned her head sharply to meet a pair of calm eyes. The man held a medical record in his hand. Seeing her awake, he closed it casually and said in a calm tone, "You had internal bleeding and fainted on the plane. I performed emergency treatment. How are you feeling now?" Nanu subconsciously reached for her abdomen. The pain had lessened a lot, but a dull ache still lingered under her skin. She opened her mouth, her voice hoarse. "Thank you." The man nodded and handed her a glass of warm water. "My name is Su Yan, I'm a doctor. This is my private sanatorium, it's very safe here." The water cup was warm, and Nanu's fingertips unconsciously rubbed against the wall of the cup. She lowered her eyes and was silent for a moment, then said softly, "Lin. My name is Lin." Nanu settled into the sanatorium. Su Yan would come to check on her every day, but apart from the necessary medical inquiries, he never pried into her privacy. Until one day, while changing her dressing, the nurse accidentally knocked over the tray. The sound of the metal instruments hitting the ground made Nanu tremble violently, reflexively curling up her body. Su Yan's hand froze in midair. He watched her subconscious gesture of protecting her ribs, his gaze sweeping over the fading bruises on her wrist, and suddenly said, "These injuries weren't caused by accidents." Nanu's breath hitched. Su Yan didn't press her but calmly pulled up her collar for her, his voice very soft. "If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to answer. But if you need anything, the lawyers and police here can help you." Nanu clenched the bedsheet and shook her head. Su Yan didn't speak again. As he turned to leave, Nanu suddenly called out to him, "Thank you." He turned back and saw a faint smile on her pale face. "But really, there's no need." Life in the sanatorium was peaceful, almost surreal. Nanu's health gradually recovered, and she occasionally went to the garden to bask in the sun. One afternoon, she passed by the conference room and inadvertently heard Su Yan arguing with someone. "They're sticking to that price, there's no way we can budge. But the market data clearly shows their valuation is inflated by at least 30%. Nanu paused. Compelled by some inexplicable impulse, she pushed open the door and all eyes turned to her. Su Yan frowned. "Lin?" Nanu pursed her lips, pointed to the financial statements on the projection screen, and after a moment she spoke. "There's a problem with the cash flow forecast on page 3. They've hidden some debt, and if calculated this way, the actual premium should be increased by 15%. The conference room was silent. Su Yan stared at her for a few seconds, then suddenly pushed the document over. "Continue." The next day, Su Yan pushed a contract in front of her. "The merger is settled. If you're interested, you can come to my company as a strategic advisor." Nanu was stunned for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "Aren't you afraid I'm a corporate spy?" Su Yan leaned against the desk, looking at her, his tone calm. "I've checked your background, of course I didn't find anything. But my intuition tells me you're trustworthy." In the hospital's VIP ward, the scent of disinfectant was masked by the fragrance of lilies placed nearby. Shin Yuheng sat on the edge of the bed, holding a bowl of steaming chicken soup in his hands, the spoon gently touching the rim of the bowl, making a crisp sound. Chingi, have another sip. He brought the spoon to Chao Chingi's lips, his voice so gentle it could drip with water. I simmered this for 4 hours, skimming off all the oil. A blush rose on Chao Chingi's pale face. She took a small sip from the spoon in his hand, her eyelashes casting a shadow in the light. Yuheng, if you stay here with me, we'll miss Nan. She won't mind. Shin Yuheng interrupted her, his tone so certain it was as if he were trying to convince himself. Ayu is the most sensible. But when he set down the bowl, the porcelain spoon collided with the glass coffee table, making a sudden clink sound. The sound was like a thorn suddenly piercing his temple. It's been 3 days. No news from Nanu for 3 days. He took out his phone, the lock screen lit up, showing Nanu's peaceful sleeping face. The last message was from this morning, the green bubble hanging forlornly at the top of the chat. I'm going to make a call. He suddenly stood up, his suit trousers knocking over the low stool. In the fire escape at the end of the corridor, Shin Yuheng pressed the dial button for the 3rd time. A mechanical female voice repeated the phrase in both Chinese and English, the sound creating an eerie echo in the empty stairwell. He then dialed his assistant's number. Xiaochen, go to the villa now, he said after a moment of consideration, not mentioning that he wanted to confirm Nanu's location, but only saying that he wanted to check the villa's access control system. About half an hour later, the assistant replied. President Shin, the villa's security system shows everything is normal except... Except what? The kitchen garbage disposal hasn't been used for 3 days, and the smart home system records show the last use was the day you left home. Shin Yuzhing's breath hitched for a moment. Nanu is a neat freak and would never let kitchen waste sit overnight. The fingerprint lock made a familiar beep sound, and the entrance hall sensor light came on in response. But the scene before him was pitch black, no lights were left on, and even from the moment he opened the door until now, the villa had remained deathly silent. You. His voice echoed in the high-ceilinged living room. No one answered. The faint rose fragrance in the air had completely dissipated, replaced by a cold emptiness. Shin Yuheng stood at the door of the villa's master bedroom, his heart pounding inexplicably, a sense of panic spreading through him. And as he slowly pushed open the door, the scene before him made his eyes widen involuntarily. The closet was wide open and not a single piece of her clothing remained. On the dressing table, her favorite perfumes and jewelry box had all disappeared. The group photo that was originally on the bedside table was also gone. Now only a lonely frame remained. His heart sank suddenly and he strode to the study, pulled open the drawer, passport, ID card, bank card, everything that could prove her existence all gone. Only on the coffee table 2 things lay quietly. A necklace and a stack of yellowed love letters. Shin Yuheng picked up the necklace with a trembling hand. This was what he gave her for her 18th birthday at Nanu, and she had never taken it off in all these years. But now Nanu is missing and this necklace is left here all alone. Shin Yuheng didn't dare to believe the worst possibility. He took out his phone and dialed his assistant's number again. Immediately check Nanu's whereabouts, use all connections and dig 3 feet into the ground to find her. The other end of the phone responded immediately, and for a moment all he could hear was the sound of typing on the keyboard. Shin Yuheng had never felt time pass so slowly. After a moment, the assistant's hesitant voice sounded. President Shin, Miss Nan's identity information has been cancelled. Cancelled identity? Why would Nanu suddenly choose to cancel her identity? What exactly happened during the time he was away?